Okay, everybody, let's talk about week 14. We're just about done. Be out of here in a couple weeks. This is a really interesting chapter. I can't even tell you how much technology is exploding. Technology brings with us two big issues that we'll have to discuss, and I think they're going to be key points for this chapter. Things that I'm going to want you to really be aware of are going to be the stages of technology development. That has been a significant um, issue for law enforcement to keep up with. The next thing we're going to talk about is crime analysis. Crime analysis. I talk a little bit more about that than other instructors might, and that's just because there's some jobs out there. And if you're thinking that after taking this course, you don't want to be rolling around in the ground with some guy at 3 o'clock in the morning who's drunk and is trying to steal your gun, this may be an area where you can still, as a friend of mine who's a crime analyst put it, you can still fight crime and go home at a reasonable hour in the evenings. So with that, we'll talk about crime analysis, and then from there, we'll talk a little bit about some of the technologies that are out there. Hopefully, the little video that I posted will help you out in some of those areas, and then we'll talk about the two issues that come up with the expanding technology. So first off, make sure you spend the time with the eras of technological advancement. Really important concepts for you, just so that you have an idea of what these stages are, because you're going to see that information again. Crime analysis. Crime analysis is usually a separate unit within a police department. These have grown pretty much as the demands on crime analysis have gotten more and more significant. Initially, small crime analysis units tried to provide what's known as strategic analysis, and that was information to the command staff on potential needs within the community. Do we need more police officers? Do we need to change our beat orientation? How are our calls for service running? What is our actual crime rate? Where are crimes occurring? Strategic kind of things, and these are used for management forecasting. The next big area, or the next area of crime analysis, is known as tactical analysis, and that's dealing with particular problems and crimes. We talked about we talked about problem solving last week. This week, one of the key functions in problem solving is crime analysis. So we're really trying to take the information that we derive. We get that input, which has to be good, because bad input gives you bad data. We take that input when it comes in. We then apply it to or put it into different types of computer programs, whether it's a GIS mapping, and then we can see where crimes are occurring. We can look at it temporally. We can look at it on time of day, day of week, monthly, and look at different areas. And when you put things together with the time of day, day of week, and you have similar crimes, you may start to see crime patterns. Now, crime analysis is one of the few places in policing where you're actually going to use crime theory. You're going to use a lot of the Brantingham's theory, stuff that they talked about. So, if you're thinking about crime analysis, that's an interesting place to look. Crime analysis data has to be timely, and that's making sure that it gets to the analyst as quickly as possible. It has to be relevant. and then it has to be reliable. So if you have bad data going in, you're not going to have good analysis. So crime analysis, this is such a really small thing. Usually in the face-to-face classes, I have a guest presenter come in this week and talk about crime analysis, because I'm a big fan of CA and their abilities. And the one thing is, the old street cop, the one thing you find out is usually the crime analysts are a lot smarter than you are. You might start to take a look into crime analysis, see if that's something that you may be more interested in. There are certificate programs, and you may even start calling around and talk to crime analysts and see what they're looking for in interns. Do they have paid internships? Do they have non-paid internships? What are your responsibilities? Several people that have gone through my classes are working as crime analysts in different agencies throughout Southern California and also with the FBI. So I'll get off my crime analyst high horse here. Take a look at the information, take a look at the information in the book as far as the final comes up. But then if you have more questions on it, I'd call a crime analyst and see if they'll give you a few minutes on the telephone. You might find it to be really, really interesting. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk a lot about the different technologies, but Lord, there is everything coming out. There's GPS that you can attach to a vehicle that you're in pursuit of, and then drop the pursuit, let it go on, and then you follow it with a helicopter or a drone. We're going to talk about drones this week. One class will have an assignment involving analyzing drones and privacy. Another technology that is out there is facial recognition. So just like you used to see 10 years ago on TV shows, where you can take a picture, compare it to pictures that are in a database, the computer will look at those and then decide whether or not they have matches for them. Really interesting technology, and great for investigators. Patrol always looking for different ways to use technology to their advantage, whether it's being able to disable vehicles that are in pursuits. The problem with that, what makes it challenging, is targeting the correct vehicle. But with that technology, a very interesting factor can be done through a bunch of different platforms. Then you have a ton of CSI kind of things. One thing that is going to become an interesting discussion is the use of familial DNA. You see several cases. Almost weekly you'll see a new case, or a cold case, where the police have developed a suspect from using DNA from public websites. The interesting concept, and figuring out where DNA is going to go and how it can really impact people. I think there's going to be a lot of privacy issues that come up with, with that DNA. But with technology, you've got two competing interests. The first is privacy. We talked about cats. We've talked about Jones, U.S. versus Jones, which is a cats-related court or case. And then there's a whole bunch of questions that come up when you apply technology and how much it affects privacy. Drones. People are kind of going insane about drones, but you have to think of what are the reasons an agency would want to go to a drone. And there's a couple. And then with that, what kind of restrictions should there be on drones? as far as operational restrictions. Some really interesting things, and by mean operational restrictions, those to protect privacy. Those of you that have a written assignment on drones this week, there's a couple of big cases out there that deal with helicopters, and make some comparisons between helicopters and drones. Then the last thing is money. All this stuff, all it takes is money. And whether you're going to be getting grant money from the feds, or whether you are getting money from your budget, where's that going to come from? Oftentimes, especially with technology, and then especially when it comes to government, we don't really think about where that money comes from. Where that money comes from is your pocket, your property taxes, if and when you own a home or a condominium, registration fees on your vehicles, your sales tax. As long as people are willing to give up money, you can buy a lot of cool toys. But that becomes the biggest issue on that is funding. How are you gonna maintain that? So with those ideas for this week, I'll let you guess what time it is. With those things this week, I think we've got a pretty interesting set of ideas to discuss and write about. So with that being said,